vehicle lockouts. We've handled 4 missing person reports. One of them actually was a juvenile, but we did find her through a lot of follow-up through her cell phones and other electronic means of communications, but we were able to locate her. 8 suspicious circumstances. We've taken 11 case reports. We made 103 traffic stops, and 73 people were issued 83 citations. We're currently watching 12 houses for people who were out of town, and we've given out 3 crime prevention notices.
Brad Brown, report. In February, we had 5 fire calls, 4 car accidents, 27 requests from the paramedics, and 4 other, total of 40 calls for the month.
Council, the president is running on the sheet, but I do have one comment. If you notice, we have a new camera up there. It is not ours. Al Solomon has lent us the camera. We used it, I think, election day, and the sound was very, very good in that camera, but I wanted to make sure it works in this room. So before we do anything, let's see what this comes out at, and I think we'll solve our problem. If it's as good here as it was there, we won't need a very expensive sound system because it's a very good camera. It costs a lot more money, but it's a lot less than the sound system that we have thought about. But most of the YouTubes and stuff that we had so far, it was very hard to hear. But this camera seems to pick up the sound much better. So we'll see what happens. Sprinkler system ordinance is next. Ordinance, second reading of adoption of an ordinance amending the village code to prescribe concerning regulations concerning fences.
I suppose we're gonna continue to postpone this until the task force.
Well, let me just talk about the task force. The task force has met twice. We have a couple of task force members here right now. I'm not asking for a report, but I do believe we've made some progress.
Yes.
It's really good. Okay, a lot of progress.
Good progress.
Good progress, good work.
And would it be useful to have any input from the trustees at this time?
No.
Well, I was actually asking.
If they want input from the
I don't
trustees,
know.
if they want input from the trustees, they'll ask for it. We've all offered our services. I don't want you to influence them. I want them to tell you what they've come to, and then we can talk about it.
But are we gonna talk about that at a board meeting, or how is it that,
Well-
see, we haven't talked at all about how this is going to transpire in the process, and so I'm inquiring.
Did I answer?
Sure.
The task force is,
How do you know and I don't know?
because I'm a member of the task force. Okay.
I sent you a list of the task force.
And that's why I know when you don't know.
Excuse me, you didn't get a list of the task force members?
No, we did. I just
We
didn't remember
did,
that.
and I just didn't remember.
Okay.
I'm not the only one.
The task force has met twice. What we're trying to reach at this point is a consensus on a way of establishing an ordinance that is clear, that will be enforceable. What we're looking at is different than what this ordinance is requesting right now. And there's give and take, we're in a discussion period with it. We are going to be looking for input most likely from our attorney, from our engineer, and from our forester at some point or another. And we're working to reach agreement on something that we can bring to the board as a suggestion that would make this ordinance a bit clearer and enforceable. And that's where we're at. And that becomes a recommendation by the task force to the board, which will be prepared, will be written out, which the board will read, and then the board will discuss. And if there are things there that you like, that we like, They get incorporated into the ordinance, and they are nothing except an advisory, we are an advisory group. Okay?
Yeah, I'm not sure that that answers my question, but
Which question?
I was just wondering how the process would go. And you told me a little bit.
Well, we get together and we're talking about each member's ideas as to what they would like this ordinance to achieve. And basically, that's what we're trying to work
Oh,
back
okay.
from.
That was actually one of my questions.
We are trying to work back from what are the problems
Great.
in the ordinance that make it A, hard to enforce, B, hard to understand, or whatever, and working back from the problems, how would you then solve them?
Right?
In direct answer to your question, Cheryl,
Thank you.
I agree with Sherry. The last meeting ended with the decision that we were going to put together a list of questions. What we're doing in part is trying to figure out what we don't know. And we understand there's some things we know intuitively, and the question is, are we happy with intuition, or do we need more than that? And that's why, in putting together a list of questions, trying to identify what we don't know, who we need to consult with, we think we'll take this another step further, but we're not there yet. We're in the process of
Thank
trying
you.
to develop those questions.
So, yes, sir.
Do you feel that if you need to call the advice of a professional outside of the names that were listed before, have you been given authorization, any kind of budget to talk with a professional? If it were required?
I know specifically we were given a budget for pizza, but
Actually, what we were told was that if there were expenses that were to be incurred, if we felt we needed something, at that point, we would consult with the mayor. At this point, we really have not hit a point where we need to consult with anybody that we would have to pay as a consultant. We're not there. And if it comes to the point where we feel we can't go further without it, then we're going to do it. Or we will request authorization and then do it. Let's talk about the correct way of doing it.
I just had one other thought to add, and that is, at the last meeting, there was some reservation expressed by the board on this existing ordinance, the proposed ordinance the way it stands now. Cheryl, I believe, or Trustee Chamberlain, I believe you were the one that suggested something like a panel. And Mike Haber, he said he had, I don't know, what was it, misgivings about the form, and I think he used the term that we should go back to the drawing board. The idea of the panel came from the board, and yet we gave no guidance to the panel. And I guess I'm asking my fellow trustees, do we feel comfortable that this is the proper form? That is, we were the ones that instituted the idea, and yet we haven't given them any kind of instruction. For example, please confine your exploration to the existing proposed ordinance and see if you can repair it, versus perhaps, as Mike said last time, going back to the drawing board and addressing the issues that caused this thing to come into place. The issues of deer, the issue of woodland protection fences that some people call deer fences, and aesthetics.
Deer fences that some people call woodland fences.
I think so.
Because other people protect gardens, very frankly.
So, is there a sense among the board that we should give some sort of a charter to the panel, or that we should leave it constituted as it is now?
That came up with the last meeting. The question that came up is our charge to look purely at deer fences, the things associated with deer fences, or is it to look at the fence ordinance, which would include non-deer fences? The group decided that it was purely limited to deer fences, and it wasn't our charge to go looking at 4-foot fences, opaque or not
And
opaque.
did
It was
the group,
purely
did
to
the
deer
group
fences.
also determine that it wasn't your charge to look at the reasons for deer fences in the first place?
We're taking it that the deer fences were